Whether you want to become an architect or just recently became interested with the topic, it's important to understand the bad side of architecture. If you don't, there's going to be a bigger chance that you'll drop out or regret your decision in the future. To foreshadow the conclusion of this video, chances are you will not be the next Ted Mosby if you do decide to become an architect. My job here today is to paint the ugly picture, the dark side of architecture, so that you're fully informed and avoid making regretful decisions in the future. So here are the 10 biggest cons of becoming an architect, from the moment you start school to your days as a professional. Learning architecture means that you're going to have to learn how to design like they did in the good old days. This means you're going to have to buy very expensive pens, paper, and equipment in general that will become obsolete within the second or third semester, only to be replaced by more expensive and powerful laptops. You'll also need to buy very expensive materials that you will use to build models for every project that you work on during your years at school. If you want to get an idea for how much you're going to spend on average, swing by the college or university you plan on attending and ask them for a syllabus containing the supply list. Then take the list to the nearest architecture supply shop and start adding the numbers up. Architecture is a creative major, and learning to be creative can be like learning a language that has no set rules. It's just confusing. Sometimes you'll do things that make sense, sometimes you won't. But most of the time you won't understand how to replicate the positive things you did before. Professors will constantly question what you did and why you did it, and your answer will never be good enough for them. Also, they won't tell you exactly what it is they want, and when they do, you won't understand anyway. On Monday, they'll tell you to design it one way, and on Wednesday, they'll ask you if you're crazy for changing what you had before. When you start designing, you'll fall into a chain reaction of decisions that will begin to shape your overall design. Most of these decisions you'll consider to be great ideas, until it's time to show it to your class. Then it's their job to tell you what's wrong with your project, which is usually everything. This happens because there isn't one specific way to design. There are many. It's subjective, and it will often leave you feeling helpless, especially when discussing your designs with your professor, who will flat out tell you you're doing it all wrong, and in a lot of cases, leave you having to start your project from scratch. Once a week, you'll be having desk crits. Here, you'll be designing at your desk while the professor walks around and speaks with other students individually. Then, when it's your turn, you'll discuss what you're doing, and your professor's goal is to give you advice, to consult you. You'll often be participating in pinups, where you grab everything you've done up until that point, place it on or near a wall, and take turns talking about what you did in front of the rest of the class and your professors. These usually result in your design changing and you having to go back and redo what you spent the whole entire week doing. Also, these pinups go on for hours. The real stressful part comes when you do your midterm and final reviews. This is when you'll be joined by your classmates, professors, and pretty much anyone the school invites, which could include other classes, professors, and architects. Then you present to the crowd and get verbally beaten at the end. It's not a fun experience, and you have to participate in these a few times every semester until you graduate. In case you haven't noticed, you'll be doing a lot of talking in front of others, so if you're naturally shy, it's not going to be easy. Because you want your projects to be great, you're going to be putting a lot of work into your designs and your research. This means you'll often have to pull all-nighters and skip bedtime for the night. Now, all-nighters are avoidable, and I'll be talking more about that in future videos, but when you're starting out and you lack experience, they're going to happen very often. You'll end up trading your friends in free time for schoolwork. You won't be able to go to concerts or parties like you used to, and your friends are going to become suspicious. Some of them may even ditch you and then blame you for letting the relationship crumble. It's very common that you'll use some of your time to work at a job and be able to afford all your classes and materials, and the rest of the time will go into your school projects. The reason for this is because design is never complete. Even if you have a great week where you've made a lot of progress, your professor will only consider that your baseline and expect nothing less from you in the future. In other words, you'll never feel complete during a semester, and your relationships with others are going to be the first to take a hit. There is no getting used to your design classes. Each semester, you're going to have to work on different projects with different purposes, and your professors are going to make sure you don't do the same thing you've done in the past. After all, the point of you being in school is to learn as much as possible in the short time you're there, so you will never be in the comfort zone. This is part of the reason why students have such a hard time and a lot of them don't make it to the end. As a matter of fact, on my very first day of architecture school, the professor walked in with her iPhone 5 in hand and snapped a picture. She then went on to say that she would take another one at the end of the semester, and her bet was that half of us would be gone. Encouraging, right? This one is probably one of the most upsetting cons, and that is what you do in school will have very little to do with what you do in your career. You're going to spend most of your time in school designing and learning to use architectural software to create your designs. You're going to do 100% of each project, from research to sketches to the final renders. When the time comes for you to start your first job though, that is your professional job, this won't be the case. Have you ever heard the term paying your dues? Well, chances are you're going to be given small roles doing very specific, repetitive, non-creative tasks for projects in the office, not getting to actually design for a very long time. Your most valuable skills when you start working will not be your designs, but it's going to be your CAD knowledge and your time management skills. This is due to the fact that a lot of firms have corporate environments rather than creative studio environments. It's rare that you will ever sketch, make models or diagrams or any of the other fun things you did as often as you did them while you were in school. One of the nice things of putting up with a long and stressful education is that after you graduate, you'll be considered an architect, right? Not quite. At least in the US, you're not legally considered an architect until you get your license, which currently means you're going to have to work as a full-time intern over a year, then purchase more books and take more classes as you prepare to take your ARE, which are the 6 state exams that you must pass to acquire your license. The American Institute of Architects, or the AIA, does allow, however, for recent graduates who will pursue licensing in the future to use the titles Architectural Associate and Design Professional, which will confuse others who are not familiar with your career. Like I said before, design is never finished. Buildings are very complex, and sometimes projects will require more of your time before a deadline. This means that you're going to be coming in earlier, leaving later, and sometimes working on weekends. Sometimes you'll even have to take your work home with you. I want you guys to keep in mind that this video was made to highlight only the negative aspects relating to architecture based on my experience, and there's always the possibility that your journey will be different than mine. Also, with all this being said, I chose to become an architect, and I don't regret the decision for a second. Architecture has the potential to be one of the most rewarding careers out there, so make sure you subscribe and watch my upcoming video where I talk about all the pros related to the field. Take care everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.